Hello, 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 and good afternoon. Good afternoon, our Facebook viewers. Good afternoon, Deborah.
Good afternoon, Cherise. Happy to be here again on another straight up conversation about education, sponsored by a loving employer, actually, University of Aruba, because I think we really like what we do and for who we work. And because of that, we are able to be here on Massive 103.5 FM, bringing education every Wednesday, 3 to 4, bringing education closer to the Aruban community and our home. Yes.
Yes, and Deborah, as we were preparing for today, the events that happened in the last week, it was really
Yes.
sad. And I think Aruba is saddened. And what we're doing, bringing education close to home, connecting to home. I would like you to permit me to just 1 minute to read an article that I read. And
For sure.
I'm going to encourage everyone to go over to the Facebook page and the university Instagram stories, because the university also is not only information about the university and the different bachelor programs that we offer, but also it's all about who we are, connecting with our community and providing education. And it's about mental health. Mental health heavily influence our quality of life. So it makes sense that mental health, just like physical health, needs to be taken care of and maintained. And one way that it can be maintained is through finding a sense of community. Community can be defined in many ways, but when simplified down to its most important element, community is all about connection. So our heartfelt condolences to the family, but as a community, let us join together and be there and strengthen, and let us not be ashamed to have the conversation. So, if you're a student at University of Aruba or not, we invite you to visit our Facebook page or Instagram stories where you can learn a bit more about mental health. Deborah.
Thank you, Cherise. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now that we need to move on to another type of conversation, a conversation that's a very important one. And it falls in line with what you've just said, because I think we have responsibilities. There's compliance and responsibilities that we as citizens of Aruba have to deal with. And our first guest actually is someone who definitely, I guess you could say compliance, but where our responsibility is weighed in very heavy. We have Luann Gomez Peters with us, and for those of you on Facebook, you can see her popping up right now. This
There she
beautiful face. Yeah.
is.
This person is a very, and I mean, every
Yes.
guest is an important person within the community. But I think what makes Luann so important is her current job and just the hectic week she just had. But before we go to that,
Weeks and months,
months.
I must say, in preparation, but we're going to go to
We'll,
talk
we'll get
all
there. We'll
about
get
it.
there. We'll
Yes.
get there. Let's start
Yes.
with the first question. Good afternoon, Luann. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Deborah. Good afternoon, Cherise. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
No, thank you. So we start always with the same question,
Yes.
What would your friends, families, co-workers at, I'll leave her fill it in, say about you that, most other people would not know? So something secretive, something, take away the mystic of who's Luann.
Okay, I've asked some of my colleagues that I work with very closely, to be brutally honest about their feedback, what kind of person I am.
So, colleagues, you can drop comments,
They
in our
can drop
box. Drop the
comments.
comments. Yes.
They can drop comments and see if I've sent their comments the way they've sent it to me. Well, I have, for example, my secretary. She told me she shows confidence in her colleagues and brings the best out in the people around her. She appreciates the people around her, and I personally like how every day she thanks me for the effort made that day.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Some other colleagues said, well, she's a boss lady that keeps it real by being honest and straightforward. She pushes you outside of your comfort zone and helps you grow, both professionally and personally. She is approachable and down to earth, a leader that creates other leaders.
Wow. Shout out to
Shout-
your team.
and if you're asking where is she working, for those on Facebook, they are seeing it. And it is Meester in de Recht, actually, Luann Gomez Peters. She is the director of our Departamento de Impuesto, the
Tax
Belastingdienst
Office.
tax office. So
Yes, headed by a woman.
headed by a woman. So now if you hear these lovely messages and you think, oh, what she's doing, you would have expected totally different brutal
Right.
comments. But it shows that there's a lot about the perception we have of someone does not always go with who they are in reality.
And we're going to go, dive into that a bit more on why the connection of people is so important. We started out on a different tone, but when
Yeah.
it comes to the connection, that's all bad. But Luella's going to help us with
Luella.
that. But, before she explains a little bit from, okay, that is what her colleague said, I would like to know, who is Luella?
Luen. Yeah, Sharice's bad with names, people. Yeah.
I know, but what I'm proud, she is an alumni of the University of
Yes.
Aruba, and she's also a part-time lecturer in the
Still,
Faculty of Law
still.
for over
10 years, for
10
over 10
years.
years.
And look her, just look at her. Just look at her.
Yeah.
We women need to keep ourselves ready looking dandy.
That's another different conversation, Sharice. So, Luen, let's go. So, tell us about your
Yes,
educational
go on.
trajectory. How did you go from little girl to where you are right now?
Yes.
All right. I went to Bombini Basisschool in Sint Dominicus also. Sint Dominicus Basisschool. After finishing kleuter and basis, I went to Collegio Urbano. And I finished my VWO studies in 1996, where I started at the University of Aruba studying law.
Wow.
I finished very, very young. I was one of the youngest students, I think, in my class. Very eager to learn. I liked my my career at the university. But when I finished, I was, I think, 23 years old. I was very young. I didn't want to start right off working. I really liked the university and also everything that was presented at the faculty. And my dad used to work for the tax office, but never in my life he had mentioned tax law, or I should, you should do this, you should do that. And one night, I still remember the patio that they still have at home is where all the conversations, the really, heavy conversations would take place. And it's usually my dad where I go to for advice when it comes to my studies, when it comes to some heavy days in my job. My dad is my go-to person. My mom is my go-to person when it comes to other stuff. But when it comes to career and advice on my career, it's my dad. So I remember I was talking to him in the patio and I said, Dad, I just don't really know what I'm going to do after graduating. And he said, well, why don't you start with a stage at the Belastingdienst? I said, Belastingdienst? I said, well, you like law? I said, yes, you're very good at it. You like numbers? I said, yes. Well, have a combination. Tax law is a combination of numbers and interpreting the legislation.
So yes,
that's nice.
Yes.
So then I decided to have my stage period at the Belastingdienst, and I loved it because it was really a combination of both. And after that, I went to study at the Rijksuniversiteit Groningen, where I.
I'm a Groningen girl. I'm a Groningen girl. Sorry.
A very, very nice university, a very nice period. And after finishing my tax law studies in 2004, I came back to Aruba in 2005, where I started at the tax authorities, at the Belastingdienst at the time as an tax inspector. And I made the change to the private sector in 2010. It wasn't my intention. I really wanted to start at the Belastingdienst and, 40 years, my dad worked 40 years for the tax office. So I thought, 10, 20, 30 years, that was my career. But after 5 years, we were confronted. We had a very small family. My husband and I, we just had our first baby. and he's
Yeah.
a civil engineer, was working at Valera at the time.
Okay.
And we had to make a choice where he was, in a limbo, keeping his job or losing his job, and I was working at the government. So we made a big change where I
wow.
started in the private sector as a tax advisor, not a tax inspector, but a tax advisor.
To look at it from the other side,
To look at it from the
Yes,
other side, and
yes.
you know what? I've been formed by the private sector. So
So
the
you're-
state of mind,
okay.
the professional
makes
that I am
sense.
today is because of the experience that I got in the private sector.
Deborah, can I just go back a bit before, because I know we have a line of questions. from
Yeah.
her,
And time flies by, Cherise. So
Right.
come on, pick it up, pick it up.
First, I'm hearing you say from, law. What really inspired you, or where did the love for law come from? And I'm hearing you talking about internship of possibilities, how that can form your future and what you're. Could you just
Perfect.
elaborate a bit more? Because sometimes students think from, we don't want to do the internship, or why do we have to do it? Or students who getting ready to, start the new academic year. By the way, May 15th, go online for our online registration at www.ua.aw. Back to you now, and they're not really sure. Could you share some words from what inspired you to study law, and secondly, the importance of internship?
Well, law and legislation, it's all about legislation responsibility. When you look around, there is always a rule to follow. Where you are, whether you are in traffic, there is, legislation that regulates how do you need to conduct yourself in traffic. There is always an aspect of law or legislation in life, and that was really what inspired me to look more and look in detail about what kind of legislation do we have, what are our rights as human beings, as being part of this community, of this island, and what are the rights of victims, what are the rights of just a civil person living in Aruba. And the internships, I really think that it's very important for students to have an opportunity to have an internship at a company or a department in the government because of the practical side of the job. I didn't have the interest in tax law until I had that opportunity for an internship at the tax department. What I would really see where, it comes to life. What you read in books, what you study in books, you get at the university. And what I install in my students as a part-time lecturer is also have that practical side. It's not about learning everything from the heart, from a book. The theoretical side is very important because you need to know your stuff. When it comes to practice, it is totally different. It complements each other. So you would have to have that part of the internship also that's very important.
And I also think adding to internship here, I think internship abroad are very important. I always say, I was happy to go to England, to Spain, and just experience culture, how it is to work in a multicultural environment. You learn from each other. So I totally understand that. But let's continue with you, Luen. So you went to the private sector. It was indeed a consultancy tax. I think then you came back to the Belastingdienst after some years.
Yes, after five to 6 years. The vacancy was opened up, and a lot of people also they applied for the job. I remember, I think the first conversation I had with the group that was doing the Werving and Selectie was Deloitte at that time, and one of the questions I got is, "Are you sure? Are you really sure you have a great career in front of you?" I was manager, senior manager, going up to director, even partnership in the private sector. And they said, are you sure? They were looking at me like I was crazy. But the thing that really struck me and stuck with me all these years is that I knew my colleagues. Working from the other side is you see the dynamic when it comes to serving your client. As a tax advisor, it's all about your client, is serving them well, is within the parameters of the law, legislation, what is possible. in order for them to pay less taxes. And as a tax inspector, you want to gain more on revenues. So,
of course, yeah.
to gain more on revenues. And the criticism they got is that they're lazy. I mean, civil servants are
Yes,
lazy, that they
that's
do not work hard. They're not interested in their job. They're people that are not going to change. You know, the bad service has been there for years and it's not going to change. And I was really convinced that that is not true, because those were my colleagues. I've worked with them, and I knew that there are some great talents working at the tax department. Right now, we have 263 employees.
Oh, wow. I never knew it was that much. Wow.
It's a very big organization. With an administrative layer, but also where we have tax lawyers, different information managers where they manage our data, and also the digitalization process is where I
touched
was
into.
really interested in.
So she kind of touched base already on what it is that, because one of my questions also, to really explain to people with really what the tax office does.
Correct. That's exactly what I wanted. Let's start from
break it down.
Break it down, and then you see we put up on the screen. Paying tax is not a punishment; it's a responsibility.
Some might think,
I know. So let's break it down.
Yes.
Why do we have to pay tax? And then we'll go into those more, in-depth questions. So let's start, because everybody's like, it's our
No, there is a responsibility.
Yes. Well, we have our vision and mission statement. You can see that on our website and also on our Facebook page. And our vision is junto cumpliendo con nuestra responsabilidad de impuesto. What does it mean, junto? Junto is if we dance together. We do it together. We have a responsibility as a tax department, but the taxpayer has also a very great responsibility to comply with, and we have to do it together. We have to be able to facilitate our taxpayers, whether they're a company or a small business, a new entrepreneur, or an individual taxpayer, to be able to facilitate them to be able to pay taxes. Our main goal, our mission, is to guarantee tax revenues for the government. The Departamento de Impuesto, the tax office, and the customs office are two strong institutions that really, we're the two only institutions that generate revenue for the government. So to facilitate also the government to invest in our education, in infrastructure, in healthcare, etc. So it's a very heavy burden, a very great responsibility to make sure that we meet our target. And right now with the Netherlands, and we had the CFT looking over our shoulders to make sure that we're doing our job the way we should. It really jumpstart, and it really gave me that steun in my job to do the job well and to push the organization up to a level that I believe that they can operate on. And it's been 6 years. May 1st, I just celebrated 6 years in that function as a managing director. And as I look back, I can really see an organization that is maturing in the service that we give our clients, our taxpayers. I can remember one time I was giving an interview, and I called the taxpayers clients. And someone on the internet or the Facebook said, clients, we're not your clients. We're paying customers and we need to pay them back. It's an obligation. I said, no,
you're a client.
Whenever you see a taxpayer as a client that is asking for a service, you will have a different approach.
Yes, that's
if
different.
If you want to have a payment arrangement for your taxes, and I see that you just have to pay, I'm not giving you a payment arrangement.
Yeah.
You're not treating that taxpayer the way he or she expects you to. So the change on giving that service has been a very great one. We're not there yet. I'm not pretending that the organization is perfect. We still have a lot to do.
Because at the beginning I was saying, I'm just so happy to see that so much has been digitalized, not only at the tax office, but just while here, just Hail Aruba, weet je? To see that we have learned from, where other countries have been doing something for years.
Yes.
We are catching up now. We're really catching up. And COVID, whether we like it, yes or no, there's always an ugly side to change. it has pushed us, because if not, we would not have been here now. And I think many people can see as clients, their lives have been facilitated. That's
Yes.
indeed the client
Yes.
organization, employer, whatever relationship. As a client, I think most of us are happier
Yes.
because of this. So digitalization, because I want to go back into the Landspakket. I know
Mm-hmm.
you had your hands and head full for the last few weeks, but digitalization within the Belastingdienst, the tax office, what's going to happen? COVID pushed you, but now...
Yes. Well, that's one of my passions. I mean, I'm a change agent at heart. I cannot see something that is not efficient and stand by and say, well, okay, we've been doing this for years, so we'll continue doing it the way we've been, processing our tax forms, for example, and expect a different result. We had clients standing in line for hours just to get a stamp. People just taking up a day on vacation just to come to the tax office to have their payment arrangements in place. And we started that journey in 2017 for the digitalization of our monthly tax returns, where all the loonbelasting, BBO that had to be filed on a monthly basis, to have that digitalized. And now we are seeing clients, which you say, Deborah, that are very happy. We have a portal that's called Bo Impuesto, which we changed the name.
You got the app,
And we had a different name, so the abbreviation is BOY.
Bo Impuesto. No.
So we had that abbreviation just to make sure that we stand, that we stand out from the others, because they have me Seitar, me SVP. So we have Bo Impuesto because it's your responsibility.
Yeah, that's true.
And so now we have a portal where all the entrepreneurs can file their forms digitally online. Now we have to go about other tax types that still are not, they're still in paper form. The pandemic really, horrible things have happened because of the pandemic. Of course, we had our economy was blocked. We didn't have the revenues that we were used to. And at the end of the day, what I've seen and what I've learned in the pandemic is that we are stronger than we believe we are. Even our economy, when we see our revenues, we had a revenue peak pre-COVID of 1.7 billion guilders, 1.7 billion. And in the pandemic year, we registered a total revenue of 1.3 billion. So only 400 million guilders we didn't collect on tax revenues or revenues from the tax department. So when you see that, is that but the conclusions that we are having is, of course, because of the loan subsidy, because of certain financial aids from the government, we could, keep our heads above water. But one important aspect is that we have a strong economy. We have a strong product where tourists will still come to Aruba. I mean, I've been out, I think, after a year, I've went with my sister to a restaurant. People were coming in, going out, and we're still in the pandemic, but people are still choosing Aruba.
Weekend, you see,
they're still choosing Aruba for their destination.
And that shows you that Aruba is resilient. So we as Arubians are resilient, but like you said, change and responsibility. Now you kind of touch base on that within your company, within the tax of that. It wasn't always easy. They had to digitalize a lot of information. But when you talk about change and responsibility, how were you able to have your people commit in doing things differently? What is it, as you would say, young leaders or that mind shift?
That shift in mindset,
It's very, very important. I mean, change is about people. We complain about a lot of stuff, and lately with social media, everybody becomes an expert and everybody has an opinion about something. Well, whenever you want to change, what I've learned in my career, I've been doing this for 16 years and I've been in a management position for 14 years. What I've learned from management is change is really about people. If people do not want to change, the change will not happen. And if you want to see change in the world, be the change you want to see in the world. We're always looking at someone else. I say, well, Deborah, you need to change that. You need to change your attitude.
Yourself.
You need to change your attitude. You need to change. No, if you change the way you go about doing things, then change will really happen.
And I think
more-
both Charisse and I can attest to that. In work and
yes.
private, sometimes it's easy to blame the person above you,
Yeah.
below you for not doing something. But the minute you look at it differently and indeed change,
Yes.
you realize the person is, they themselves change. So
And they themselves are struggling.
they themselves are
And we need to cooperate and co-elevate. I call it
I
co-elevate.
like that.
Because
Co-elevate.
when you
Yes.
co-elevate is you see what your part is within that relationship. Is if it's a work relationship with your boss, with your colleague that is not going well, what
Yeah.
can you do about it to change that? Because we need to co-elevate.
Yes.
If we don't co-elevate, then the real change will not happen.
And,
And it's a struggle. I do not say or pretend that it's easy.
Oh no, definitely not.
Change is not easy because you have pushback. You have people that are, working or used to work in a certain way for 30 years, 20 years, and they will look at you and say, okay, you're the newbie, you're the new kid on the block.
Kibosa.
Kikibosa, and why are you changing it? If it ain't
Yeah.
broke, don't fix it. Just leave me alone,
And the funny, I was just thinking, just sometimes for people to put things into perspective, and then I want to go to the last question. Also, it's like, you don't want things to change in your work, in your setting, but you want better service. You want vooruitgang, and you can't have one and not have the other.
Exactly.
So that people need to understand it's a whole integrale of holistische view from if you want indeed the belastingdienst, if I want for you to do something, then it's my responsibility to pay my taxes on time, fill in my form on time, because as you just said, there are two inkomsten voor Land Aruba.
Right.
Yes.
Douane and taxes.
That's it.
And I wonder if people really would daarbij stilstaan, if we're standing still,
Yeah.
are those the only two income? I mean, and okay, you can say there's people think, oh, but hotel, they only pay a certain degree of taxes as well. Because
they pay tourism levy. They pay if they have a casino, they have casino tax. But I think the moment we realize that it's our responsibility and we owe it to our island. If you are an entrepreneur and you're doing business on the island and you're not paying taxes, you're not cheating the government, you're cheating yourself.
That's true.
Look at the pandemic where it happened and we all wanted some financial aid from the government. But then we're being confronted with the fact that we never filed our taxes.
Yes.
Some companies never filed their BBO taxes, but still they want an MKB uitkering from the government.
Now, is it eerlijk? Nee.
It's not. So our job, we're beruchte mensen, but our job is to make sure that everyone pays their fair share. Because of the fact that if you cheat the system, you're cheating yourself or you're cheating your neighbor. Someone that needs healthcare, a student that wants to go abroad and study in the Netherlands or the US, someone that will receive his or her pension, you're cheating them.
That is true.
And and if I may, I think we need to make a distinction on what our obligation, responsibility is, and what is politically happening on the island. Because people get upset, and I'm sure you're confronted with different conversation, even in your social gatherings.
It's different. Yes.
And that's where you even still have a responsibility as a citizen to speak up. I mean, it's also your choice on who you vote, the thing, but it's your responsibility only not to speak up on Facebook, Sundra Patras, the screen. But let's all unite and stand up together and make it. So if you know the law, sometimes I think it's also not knowing things, I guess. Finding it difficult. But because I think we have our other guests there already, I just want to touch one quick question, and if you can answer in short. You've been busy with the Landspakket. You just had.
Explain quickly because you mentioned it, and I'm not sure everybody knew about the Landspakket.
So we all Landspakket, and that. Oh, I'm no expert neither, but I know that Luan. Yes, leave Luan explain. At Landspakket, you just had the eerste kwartaal, things that had to be done, and for anyone that hasn't received this document, so you can find it online. It's free. If you really want information, it's up to you to look for it. Luan, maybe you can tell them. But one of the themes where we have to reform on is our belastingen. Het herinrichten van het robuust belastingstelsel, as they say. Can you just very briefly, for people to know, instead of just hearing it on the street, hear it from your mouth itself, the source itself, what is it that needs to take place as one of those themes to make sure that Aruba is where we need to be in the future?
Well, I think we need to be, as what I call in Dutch, toekomstproof. When you see the Landspakket, it's because we have had some financing from the Dutch, from the Netherlands, where they have come with a couple of requirements. It's just like when you take a loan at the bank. The bank would say, well, okay, I'll give you a mortgage for you to build a house or a home, but you will have to pay me within 30 years or 35 years. And this is the interest percentage. Well, it's the same with the Netherlands. We've had a very great necessity for that finance because of the loan subsidy and the MKB and everything that we had to keep those businesses and our citizens with enough money not to go bankrupt. But the Netherlands said also, well, we have some requirements, and the Landspakket was signed by both countries in November of 2020, where a couple of reforms need to take place. And one important part of the Landspakket is the reform on the tax legislation, not only the tax legislation, but also efficiency, innovation, and digitalization of the
which already started.
And one great thing about it is when it comes to the tax reform, we've been busy already together with the Minister of Finance. We had a first phase of the tax reform. The second phase is at Parliament still, but then the pandemic happened. So it had to be processed by the Parliament in March last year, but because of the pandemic, it has been put on hold. The main focus of reforms when it comes to legislation is reduce, simplify, collect. We need to reduce our rates.
Simplify, collect.
We have a lot of legislation where Aruba is one of the highest in the income tax. We have one of the highest percentages around the world. So we have to reduce those direct taxes, is what the Landspakket is talking about. Have that shift from direct taxes to indirect taxes.
Yes.
So direct taxes are income tax, profit tax, grondbelasting. So those are direct taxes that are paid directly by us.
Your income,
Indirect taxes are mostly focused on consumption. So when you have a system, an indirect system like we have currently, the BBO, it's a cumulative system. So the cumulative system, one of the biggest criticism of the BBO is it's a cumulative system because you cannot have a high percentage. The higher the percentage, the heavier the burden on the prices. A BTW is a better system technically because you have offset from voorbelasting, so it will not influence the price. So you will see the change. The main objective is to have the change from the direct taxes, lower them, reduce them,
and you have it somewhere.
Simplify and then collect. And the indirect
simplify.
Yes.
So lower, it's gosh.
Reduce, simplify, collect.
Collect is the last one. Remember,
Yes.
that's the last thing. She's the last one.
And you see in countries that have introduced a VAT, so the value-added tax, the value-added tax is the workhorse of the revenues. You can generate a lot of tax revenues with a value-added tax because the tourists will also pay. Those that are illegal on the island still need to eat, still need to drink.
So that's where
they're also contributing. Right now, they're not paying income tax. They're not
and
paying loan belasting because they're working
illegally.
So from moving that from the direct to indirect taxes, I think we can really be as an island and have that surplus on our budget, be weerbaar, was what they call in Dutch.
We have to go, but I think for anyone, as if you were paying attention, the Landspakket was a Rijksoverheid .nl. Charisse had it just up on our Facebook, Rijksoverheid.nl. There you'll find out more information about het Landspakket. But also if you're curious about belastingrecht and just law, I mean, why not just register at the university as an audit student and follow Luan's course? I mean, you have the director of the Belastingdienst there herself, and you can ask her, because I think you need to be informed. You need to invest in yourself. And it's not only for the persons working, and they would have to go through that, but for us as a community, we need to broaden our mind and be better informed in why things are happening. Luan, I would love to continue. Our next man, our agent, what is 001? Is waiting for us, where he will delve in a bit to compliance as well. And I know compliance is one of his points, C3, in de
Yes.
belastinghervorming. It says compliance programma's worden voorgezet en opgesteld. So we
Yes.
definitely have with this person. So Luen,
Yes.
thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so
Hope you
much,
enjoyed.
Deborah.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Luan.
Thank
And I
you.
think this is just a top of the iceberg. And anybody, if you did not download the app, download the app because there's
Yeah.
so much other information.
Yes.
Right. So thank you so much. And this
Thank
is
you.
straight up conversation about education. And we're right here on Massive 103.5 and live on our Facebook page. We would just like to remind everyone or potential students coming up soon is our online registration. And my colleagues Richard and Cynthia, as they're working behind the scenes with our webmaster as well, we are preparing to start our online registration for the academic year 2021-2022. So if you need any information, we would invite you to surf over to our website, www.aaw, where you can learn more about who we are and what we are as a university. And as Deborah's back in the hot seat, we have Agent
001.
001.
Bon tardi. Oh my God. If you don't know the face, this is Anthony Rossini.
Rossini Anthony. Rossini is a name, right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
So Anthony Rossini sounds much better.
But before we even start out, I have specific instructions from his daughters.
Okay.
Isa Tati, Mr. Mustrabong, everything must be
Oh
looking
my-
good, and his daughters are tuned in. So shout out to his daughter.
They're both.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So that is really, really nice. So, Rossini,
Yes, good afternoon to start with.
good afternoon. We are happy to have you. And I have to say, again, that's why I love what I do at the university, but also I love this program, is you get to find out about people, things that you never knew.
Right.
And when I saw your bio, opgevoed in St. Nicholas, I was like, where?
I was like, seriously?
Where?
To see him?
I was like, where?
I'm home here, you know.
But I have always seen him in a total different environment. And I want for us to get to know a bit about that environment. So tell us, what would your friends, family, co-workers in a very important organization say about you?
Okay, let me start to thank you both for inviting me here. It's a pleasure for me to spend some couple of minutes, I would say 30 minutes,
Yeah.
talking about straight up education. Yes, who's Roxini Anthony? They will tell you straight guy. Integrity is
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
one
This
of
is
my
motto,
rhythm, you can say it,
Yeah.
and straight up and in the class, because I'm also a teacher at the university.
Yes.
They would
Yes.
say he's a strenge meneer,
Yeah.
like that's one of
That's
the
true.
things.
Yeah.
I like
Komt
it.
er zo over? Komt hij ook zo
Yeah,
over?
but streng and eerlijk.
Yeah,
Because
right.
the students love him. The students love him. Yeah.
And one thing I think it's the integrity, and always
Yes.
do the best of yourself, and
Yes.
try to do everything in compliance with your obligations. I think that's
Oh,
nice,
wow.
nice
Yeah.
nature, right?
Can I just really say, and what would your daughter say about you?
Oh,
Kiko
yeah.
papi lobis, Kiko boss na lobis sa di papi. What would your daughter say about you?
I think the most wonderful dad on the world.
Okay.
They're falling
Okay.
down.
Okay.
No, I'm joking, but he has two wonderful daughters who are so impressed with him, and there's everything is for dad. Every time you meet him, it's like, see me tata saki saki. And one of his daughters, was part of the entrepreneur program. And I was just like, if I didn't know your dad, I know him now.
No.
So
And-
shout out, wonderful.
And you see so well
wonderful.
with Luen as with Anthony's daughter, the role that the father plays is a very important one and very important in our community. So for those dads, and Mother's Day is coming up, so that's a shout out first to us. You'll get your moment the month after, but think about the importance of your role. But let's at that. So Rossini, St. Nicholas, where does that play a role in your educational trajectory? So
Yeah.
where, how? Tell us.
Okay, I born and lived always in St. Nicholas in Lago Heights specifically. Went to Paulus School.
Oh, wow,
Basis
shout
school.
out.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. After that, I went to John Wesley College. So
Oh,
also in St. Nicholas.
Shout out to- yeah, shout out.
And after that, I went to Mao, that was in town.
Uh-huh.
Ah.
Yes, because there were no Mama and St. Nicholas, so we got into town.
yes.
And after that, I went to the University of Aruba. There I did de Financiële Economische Faculteit back in 1990. No, 93. 93. I was one of the first group of students.
Hence,
First group,
yeah.
hence,
first student, and
studentennummer
the
001. And I think now we're at student number, maybe what? I see the
Oh,
19,000, the 20, I don't know.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll have to check that out. Richard, if you're listening, let me know what the
Yeah.
student count is. Yes, that's why we said agent
001. That is, and also the eerst, nee, was not the eerst afgestudeerde.
Yeah,
no?
it was the
Also,
Jawel,
Also, yes, I was
and
mixed.
within 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but why didn't you choose the University of Aruba? Why didn't you go abroad? There were possibilities.
Okay, yeah, definitely. My intention was not to stay in Aruba. You know, back then when I finished my MAO, I was ready to go to Holland.
Yeah.
House was already fixed. I was already registered at the high school, no, the middelbaar. I went to MEO, the Alkmaar.
Okay.
And then
wow.
suddenly, a certain day, we had a visit of the dean back then, Mr. Sipkema.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've
And,
heard the name. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he passed away, he said.
Yeah.
But there was a presentation about a new faculty that will start in a couple of months, and it was late April, May, so it was very late because
Yeah.
I was prepared to go to Holland.
Yep.
I was already in the plane, and then one of the things that stick in my mind was when Mr. Sipkema told me okay, you are going to do one eenjarige MEO. And then the next year, you will start the first year from the HBO.
Yeah.
If you come to the FEF, you will be already in the eerste jaar from the HBO.
He was a good market salesperson.
Yeah, and you know, already the figures start from ting, 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 ting. So, you know, like, that's 1 year of savings. And then I say, hey, that sounds very good. But still in the back of my head, I want to go to Holland. You know,
Every young person, you know, you want to get
Yeah.
in
I
that
wanna get a student
plane.
life there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I said, I remember I was listening and he said, yeah, you can start a FEF and then you can go in the second year in Holland. So that I will get an adventure there for 1 year. And I said,
Adventure.
Yeah.
You call it adventure.
You know, I was speaking to the students the other day, the course reference, and they were like, you know, when I came the first time, I just came just to not stay home. And then they were so empowered by what was going on that they, you know,
Stayed
they
the rest of
treated the
the-
state. So how was that for you?
You know, I think I cannot look back and say I took a bad decision back then. I think that was the one of most important decision that I took in my life to stay here on Aruba, because my student debt, I can say that's one part.
Yeah.
It's
Almost near-
It's
yeah.
almost zero
Yeah.
because you stay in Aruba, you stay by mom and dad. Mom will keep cooking for you. So, you know,
Yep.
that's
Until someone else started to cook for him, I guess.
because coming back, I went to the lessons from how to make soup because I was prepared to go to Holland.
Yep,
How to
yeah.
make
That's how it used to
fuji,
go
how
before,
make,
uh-huh.
you know, you got the preparation. I was already, yeah, there she is.
Yes, Isabella, his daughter is online like that. I'm listening in.
Listening
yes, so
in.
you were already prepared. You did all your instructions, your cooking instructions,
And you took-
ready to get in, and you took a step back.
And then I say, let's try it out, you know, and let's try 1 year of FEF. And then I canceled everything. And I say, okay, I came home back and told my parents I'm not going to Holland anymore.
Oh,
I
wow.
will stay in Aruba for 1 year, you know,
And they
for 1
might
year.
have-
And I can say after the first year, I say to myself, no, hey, I will finish up my
And for those listening in, Luen and Rossini both, I mean, it says a lot. And now, because, you know, what does he do? People are like, okay, Bossi Turesaki and nu wat?
Yeah.
He's the internal auditor at the Central Bank of Aruba.
But before that, what did you do?
Yeah.
Just briefly, because
Yeah.
we have some questions up
Yeah.
here. But because your trajectory is very interesting.
He did
What
after
did you do
after FEF?
After the FEF, I just heard in the conversation with Luann about internship.
Yeah.
And my internship was at the Central Accountantsdienst back then in 97.
Oh yeah.
And back then, Mr. Franklin de Kort was the director of the Central Accountantsdienst. And he told me, you are going nowhere. You're going to start work with me. And
You were good then.
and that's the important part of a good internship, you know. And it gave me also the opportunity to start my career as a Dutch charter accountant, because as soon as I began working for the Centrale Accountantsdienst, I got the opportunity to do my chartered Dutch accountant. So
Dat is
registeraccountant.
Yeah.
It took me a long way before because it's a heavy study.
Niks mis mee. It's a journey.
It's a journey. It was a beautiful journey, a long journey, but as I can say, a successful and nice journey. Stressful, definitely, but I can say I can be glad to be one of the. We are not a lot here on the island.
How many are there?
I think we are about 50.
Oh wow! I think there's more in that in lawyers, isn't there?
Yeah.
So it says a lot. Wow.
Yeah. And so I become a register accountant in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. And then I started my career at the Centrale Bank van Aruba.
Wow. And that has been how long now? Because
For 12 years.
Okay, so a bit longer, because I'm here like 12, 11 years, and I'm like, I've always known that Rossini has been there. And you have moved up through the central bank, as everyone does who wants to.
I think I'm well established, let me say well established in Centrale Bank van Aruba now. And I'm good there, you know.
So you're not moving for anything.
But you know, he's stayed, but he's so innovative.
That's true.
You know, he's very innovative. And you know, before you answer that, let our listeners. So those of you just tuned in, this is straight up conversation about education, and we're here with Mr. Rossini Anthony, manager from the Internal Audit Department of the Central Bank of Aruba,
and part-time lecturer at the University of Aruba.
Yes. So then, first, tell us of what central bank plays a crucial role in ensuring economic and financial stability. So let us first understand, what does the Central Bank of Aruba do?
Okay, Central Bank of Aruba has an important role in the Aruban community, especially the financial community. We do the supervision, especially supervision of the banks. That's one of the tasks of the central bank.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we are the monetary. We are responsible for the monetary policy of the island. We also give out banknotes and coins to the Aruban community. That's another role of the central bank. I was part also of the recent design.
Picture up there,
it's a wonderful project that it took years, but the end product was very nice.
Yes,
and it was a privilege to be part of that too for your community. So and the central bank, that's the most important tasks of the central bank.
And that they're in task, but you also have a very important task with internal auditors. So,
right.
You know, I Googled it, but I still want to see, how he explains it.
I can say it very quickly, like you should guarantee that all the processes, all the internal controls are in place, and that everybody comply with the regulations and the policies, the statements,
compliance, responsibility.
Right. Yes. So it's simple. Rules are made to be followed, and if you don't follow the rules, there are measurements that can be taken against you. And I think that's the whole circle of life also.
I Googled it because, of course, you have an idea, but sometimes you really want to know. And then somewhere I found, objective is of an internal audit to educate management and employees about how they can improve business operations and efficiency amongst things, advising. But they also said, what are the top 5 skills required for an internal auditor? And when we asked him to describe himself, the number 1 was integrity.
That's
that was
exactly what you
yes.
mentioned,
Even the most
Colin.
successful internal content, they need to be integer, have that integrity
Yeah.
and
Objective also, you know.
and objective. So I see there's relationship building. They say partnering, communication. There's teamwork, diversity, and continuous learning.
Yes,
So
that's
lifelong learning.
Lifelong
There
learning.
is
So
right
that
under your eye.
explains,
Yeah.
so I guess that makes you a good auditor.
yes. I think internal auditor in this case, and the nice part of being also a lecturer and working is that you can combine those two, and you will keep up with the new theories and new stuff that's coming out. So you will keep always up to date with your knowledge.
Yes, but now you're saying like you're comparing, that auditing. But what about during now and after kind of the pandemic and the role that the central bank played was very, very important. Could you just explain to our listeners and our viewer a bit, because some people get confused because they're like, okay, we need to put a tax over there. So what the central bank doing now, and who's checking who's doing what?
Mhm.
Could you just give a little bit of explanation to what happened during it, what was rolled, and how that changed, and what the central bank is doing differently?
I can say we are not doing anything different than we do in the past. Only we put more emphasis. We put more emphasis on the foreign reserves.
That's
Okay.
And in the community, you heard something like they don't want us to send money abroad.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
it's our task to protect our
But
currency.
explain it, break it down a bit, because
Because
I
people don't
know
understand. People don't
Right, and
understand.
they would say from yes, no, you need to just do it, and others sending out millions and they're not check offshore, blah blah blah. Just break it down a bit so people can understand exactly what the role is and why it is important.
I think as a country, we have the Aruban florin,
Mhm.
and that's our own currency. So you need to protect your currency, and to protect your currency, you need to have enough foreign reserves. So as a central bank, you need to balance those two out to make sure that we remain with a strong currency.
Can see with
And that's we say the correlation between those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should make sure that the all the measurements are taken so that we can guarantee the exchange rate that we are coupled to with the dollar.
Because
Right,
people
so
take that for
right,
granted. They take that for
right.
granted that there's so much more technicality behind
Yeah.
our currency.
It's pretty it's not simple, but it's broader, much broader. But
Yes.
it's part of it.
And I want to, what subject is that you teach us again?
Administratieve organisatie en interne beheersing.
Economy is
is-
auditing.
Auditing.
Because I was thinking, if someone already messaged me, I need to start following courses at the university.
Yes,
And I'm
just
like,
send us
this,
an email,
and-
osa@ua.away.
and this
Yes.
is another one that you're like, okay,
You could be an audit student in his
Hey,
class. Yeah.
I'm working Charisse here. So I would just step in and say, I want a private class. Name
But
that.
just one quick one step back.
Yeah.
There was this whole argument from somebody lost couple if florin the dollar. I know you were like,
Yeah.
don't bring this up, but we have to bring it up because it's something that people didn't really understand. From why should we yes, why should we not? No, I know this is a technical story, but would you be able to break it down? I don't know. Is it possible to break that down?
I cannot speak on behalf of the central bank.
No, definitely.
No,
they're
no.
reserved in every way.
Right.
Yeah.
I can speak out for myself, and I think as an Arubian with our own florin, Aruban Gilder, Aruba florin, it's a part of the community, and I think we should preserve it. And I think we should do everything to preserve our currency.
Yeah. And I think because I see Poots has already entered, so he's there. But I would like to link the Landspakket because we talked about
Yes,
it with
yes.
Luen, and I saw compliance, bankaire organisaties zouden benaderen. There's a lot. Again, I've said, you can find it on rijksoverheid.nl. The central bank is playing a very important role in that. Can you just inform people that they know it's really een hele integrale onderdeel is Landspakket. It's not just affecting one organization, it's many.
No, because the Landspakket is covering a broad the whole island, and a part of it is also the financial sector. And we, as the regulators of the financial sector, directly and indirectly, you will be involved in the regulation and about the compliance with later on the Landspakket. So that's just like Luan said, it's written there, and we got to
Yeah.
comply with it.
Yes.
And it's just like going to a bank. Those are the requirements. You need to comply with them.
Yeah.
And we say if you go to a bank, the bank put the requirement. You don't put the requirements for them. So
That's true. And for those of you, again, if you go to the Landspakket, I see onder het thema D, en er staat, er wordt onderzoek uitgevoerd naar de maatschappelijke kosten van de eigen munt, what you already said,
Yeah.
versus de dollarisatie
Yeah.
door een externe onafhankelijke partij. So it's not something, that you are inventing, but it's there on paper. Dus besluit over de wenselijke monetaire structuur. Op basis van de uitkomsten van het onderzoek zullen de maatregelen worden bepaald en geïmplementeerd. So there's so much that...
I think it's preliminary to give a direct view on it, but I think there is a lot of things that you should be studying, analyze more deeply, and to be sure which direction you want to go.
Okay, so rijksoverheid.nl. I think we've...
Yes, I'm putting it up again because, people would have these discussions. I said you have to first be informed, read about what is written
yourself.
in the Landspakket, and then go to the experts. We had Luana, we had Rusini, we have Rusini right here, and then have that discussion, but have that discussion with respect, because it's all about connecting and wanting to be the change agent. Like Luana said, what did she say?
I know it was collect. The last one was collect.
Yeah,
I forget.
no, but she said co-elevate.
Co-elevate. Oh, that one. Oh,
each
yeah.
other by making sure you find out the information.
And then you share that with other people,
and share it as well in conversation.
Yeah.
So, we're coming to the end. And, again, with the central bank, it's always like, remember, these are the obligation. This is internal audit. It has nothing to do with the politics. That's the second part. But I think too often it's like mingled in each other. And how difficult is that not to have conversations?
Yes, and I think we have on the island enough experts to deal with this, with these aspects of the Landspakket, and I think we got to make use of them.
No, definitely.
Yeah, he's getting also a shout out from the students, Alexandra Gema, which is our student who is visually impaired. Thank you so much for tuning in with Straight Up Conversation about education. So, Rosina, we're coming to the end of this conversation. I think you had one more question on the Landspakket, or is it?
No, that was, I have 101 questions, but in respecting each other's time, we know that Poets is right there. And I think Rosina has done a good job by taking away a bit the myth around the central bank. Because as you see, people from Pariva die Brug, they're just there, they're approachable, they share their knowledge at the university with their students, just as that knowledge was shared with you many years ago. And he is actually very, as I've said, important man within the university, because he will always be our agent 001. So, Rosini, thank you very much for sharing sharing your and for shedding light to Aruba, for people to be informed, and hopefully, therefore, Sherry said, keep on looking to be, but also be inspired by your story, because it's not only the older but the younger ones listening in, your daughters, you're an example, you'll be an example for someone else to make that decision that is best for you, and trust that somewhere along the line you will reach to where you need, where your passion lies, and you will be the happiest where you're settled.
And like you say, make sure that whatever it is you do it with ambition, because
integrity.
Whenever you see Rusini, he would never say no.
Yeah, that is
true. He would never say no. Rusini, me to druk, me to get back. And he always does. I really appreciate that, appreciate taking out the time, because I know it is very busy. It's a busy time. There's a lot happening on the island, but thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And Deborah, again, I think for next year, Sierra has a whole
these people, but people are audit students, we have them at the university, and it is important that persons seek the information, not just think, oh, okay, you can Google a lot, but getting the experience and the expertise from a local person who does this every day, that's the added value of going to the University of Aruba. And as with Luan and as with Rosini, after, you can continue getting a broader perspective and translating it here to our local community. So I am happy for this straight up conversation because it made me even much more aware of, compliance and responsibility that I have as a
Tax,
citizen.
yes, yes.
And I hope that it has done the same for our listeners, those looking in via Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us.
And if you have any questions, please put it in the
Yes.
comment box, and our speakers, our guests, will always answer them. And as we started out this conversation, it was a very tragic week. On the Facebook of the University of Aruba and
Yeah.
on our Instagram stories, we have some information for anybody who may be struggling with questions or with mental health issue. We also have a pledge, and we're going to ask everyone to share that pledge that we placed on our Facebook. Make sure that we are all going to be part of this community as we struggle and come to grasp on where we are.
Okay.
And as saddened as we are, we would like you to pledge to do your part in breaking the stigma on mental health. And if you can reach out, we will reach back out to you. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
having this straight up conversation
About education, sponsored by the university every Wednesday. See you next week, Cherise, at 3. Well, I'll see you before, but see you at 3.
Yes. So thank you so much, our Facebook listeners,
Bye-bye.
everybody else. We really enjoyed having you and that you are here with us as well. Yes.
Aruba University.